Hey friends, welcome to another edition of the Tennis and Bagels podcast. It is me, your host Vansh, and today I'm joined by my good friend Owen Lewis, and we're going to recap the Paris Masters that just took place, and we're going to look ahead to the year-end championships, the World Tour Finals in Turin with the top 8 players. So this should be a fun episode. Hey there, Owen, how are you doing?
Doing well, excited for this. I haven't been able to watch a ton of tennis, but I did see most of the semi with Djokovic and Tsitsipas. Followed other results, so should have some fun stuff to talk about.
For sure, yeah. Let's start with Djokovic because he's obviously not played nearly enough tennis as he normally does during the season, and he's missed 4 Masters 1000s, 2 majors. Obviously, he's been doing really well ever since he won Wimbledon. Just that one loss in the Labour Cup, just prior to Paris, obviously. He didn't win the Paris Masters. Spoiler alert for anyone who didn't know. but I mean, but still, like he's still so good that he can still make the top 8 despite missing all these mandatory tournaments for the players. And so yet again another final, yet again some really good matches and performances. And I think even though he lost the final, I think he can be, feeling still pretty good, like overall about his chances.
Yeah, I think so too. And before this tournament, when he was sort of cleaning up at the little tournaments and people were saying like, oh, he's still the best player in the world, I thought it was too soon to say that, but I can get behind that a little bit more now because some of the stuff he did in Paris was outrageous. The dissection of Musetti, the first set against Tsitsipas, and then coming through to win that final tiebreak. Like, I think his peak level is probably as good as it's ever been. He did some pretty scary things in Paris, form-wise. And he did them against top opponents, which I think is key. So, yeah, I mean, World Tour Finals, like, I don't think he's going to win them just because he hasn't in 7 years. But ahead of 2023, yeah, like, things seem good. Yeah,
I agree with that. I guess now we can sort of dive into the semis. Actually, let's cover the semis first. So we're going to... So I guess it was Djokovic against Tsitsipas. The other semifinal was Rune against Felix. Not so much to talk about there. Felix was on a 16-match winning streak, obviously having won 3 titles the week before that. He was obviously feeling it physically, and he ran into a really top-notch opponent who was on a great run, and we'll get to Rune later. But I guess let's focus on Djokovic and Tsitsipas because obviously this has been a matchup that hasn't had... they've had a few good matches in Rome, and most of them have been on clay, the good ones.
Yeah.
But on a hard court, Tsitsipas, of course, has those 2 wins against him in Canada and in Shanghai. But really, a lot of their matches, apart from those, have been fairly straightforward for Djokovic. Most of them have been 6-3, 6-4, or like one break in each set. And so I thought this was a really good performance for Tsitsipas to come back from a set down and make this as competitive as it was, especially because it was in danger of being a blowout again.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that first set, Djokovic lost 1 point on serve, I think.
Yeah.
It was 6-2. It seemed like a continuation of the Musetti beatdown. And I think the thing was, like, it was close. Well, not close, but Tsitsipas was keeping pace through his first 2 service games. And then Djokovic just took it up a notch and blew him away. Yeah, it was not close. It's still wild that Djokovic can do this to top opponents because Tsitsipas is ranked, 4th, 5th in the world?
Yeah. I guess now he's 3rd, but yes, like he's been a top 5 player.
Djokovic was making him look like a junior through no fault of Tsitsipas's. I mean, as always, I'll say he should have found a way to do more on the return in that set because 1 point is just not enough by any stretch of the imagination. But he wasn't playing badly, and he got crushed.
Yeah, and that was the first set, and then it was he was down, I think 1-2 love 30, and
something like that.
And then he got out of that game and held, and then you felt like, okay, the match is starting to get a little. It's starting to get more competitive. He started getting the crowd behind him. He started, which I thought was a good move actually, because
I liked that a lot. Like he would urge the crowd on kind of inconsequential points. Like he'd win a point at 30-15, and it'd be a decent point, but not a great one. And he'd be like, "Yeah, get up!" And that's awesome, go down kicking and screaming, be weird.
Yeah, and it certainly helped his intensity. And I saw that fight again. That the Tsitsipas without all the scar tissue the last couple of years. He definitely had that when he first broke out on the screen, and he believed like he could beat anyone. And he sort of played like that a little bit in the second set, like bossing points with his forehand, serving a lot better, taking his chances on the return. He was pretty opportune.
Yeah, that's the best he's returned all year, I would say. Like he hit multiple good backhand returns in that set. Like he broke Djokovic twice. Like that is massive for him, and kind of massive for anyone at this point to break Djokovic twice on a set on a hard court. But especially considering how the first set went, like it was amazing.
Yeah, and then I thought some other things that stood out. Obviously, Tsitsipas' forehand defense, turning a lot of points around. Just hanging in these rallies, just like hanging tough and not allowing him to get pushed, not allowing Djokovic to push him too far behind the baseline, and especially in those. And like Djokovic was having to be really precise to get it to Tsitsipas' backhand, because Tsitsipas was doing actually a pretty decent job, like hanging in. Obviously when he has time on his backhand, it doesn't really miss much. The whole purpose of his backhand, why people say it's more of a weakness, is so you can force short balls and then you can attack off of them. And I didn't feel like Djokovic had so much success hitting through Steph in that second set because I think Tsitsipas' forehand defense, it really held up and it turned a lot of points around. And then he was the one who was. It felt like the match sort of was on his racket for a time in that second set.
Yeah, and I think it was also an illustration of sort of how confidence affects a match, because no one can keep pace with a 100% Djokovic on a hard court, right? But I think the elite can keep pace with a 90% Djokovic on a hard court. And so I think as Tsitsipas was surging, Djokovic dropped just that little bit, and you could see it, right? Like Tsitsipas started taking over points. Like I think he started moving better and defending better. Like I do think players will defend better when they're confident. And it doesn't really seem like those two things should be correlated. But if you're doing all the running, then I feel like you're not gonna maybe take that extra step when you have to. But when things are going well, it's like, I can still win this point if I'm on the run. And that forehand defense is probably the most underrated part of his game. On clay, I think it's devastating. And it's really good on the hard court, too. Like, the match I'll point people to was the 2021 Barcelona final with Nadal. Tsitsipas makes a couple of ridiculous gets deep on his forehand. 15 feet behind the baseline, dead run, resets points, especially early in the match. I was watching it, and it seemed like borderline unfair. Like you said, it definitely came into play in the second set of this match.
Yeah, for sure. And then once it was 1-all, and Tsitsipas was serving first to start the third. I mean, I guess in his third service game, he was under pressure right away. He was 15-40 down.
Yeah.
And at that point,
as well, right?
Yeah, at that point, I thought Djokovic was going to break there, and it wasn't going to be a super close third set. But, again, to Tsitsipas' credit, he holds there. He saves those 2 break points. And Djokovic is getting a little annoyed at this point because he thinks, I should have converted one of these chances. But it just made the match a lot more compelling. And then once it went to a tiebreak, I guess, and then he had 2 more at 4-all as well, right? So he had 4 break points. And
4-all is when the match got really good. And it was interesting because I think the third set was sort of a combination of the first 2. Like, on the one hand, Djokovic returned to his service dominance. He lost 3 points on service.
Yeah, holding very easily.
Never in danger of being broken. But at the same time, Tsitsipas did a much better job of protecting his serve, saving all those break points, getting to the tiebreak. And I want to talk about that 4-all game especially, because they had a couple insane rallies after which Djokovic was visibly tired. And as we know with him, that doesn't last long. You can make him visibly tired and he will still beat you, but it's still amazing to see just because it doesn't happen that often.
Right. And there's that one point in particular that I distinctly remember, Tsitsipas hitting a ridiculous inside and forehand, and then followed by a drop shot that he somehow had great feel on. It was one of the points of the year. They had
4-all deuce, I think. Gorgeous point. He was so proactive during that rally, I remember, because Djokovic was hitting these cross-court backhand slices, and Tsitsipas was taking the extra time to run around him and hit that forehand. That's extra work, extra effort, but he got better shot quality for it. And at the end, Djokovic didn't fully run for that drop shot. He was staggered by that rally. Like you said, one of the points of the year. It was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously we get to the tiebreak, and then
oh yeah,
oh my gosh, the sequence of events that took place in some of these rallies.
So we should start at 3-all, right? Djokovic's serve. Tsitsipas gets on top of the rally. He was behind in the rally first, right? And then he got a lob onto the baseline.
Yeah.
Flipped to the point, attacked, inside out forehand winner for the break.
Yep.
Yep. And at that point, for a fleeting second, I was like, wow, I think he's going to win.
I thought the same as well. I thought if he gets one of these next 2 points, he's in a good position. But obviously, Djokovic, being as clutch as he is.
Right. I mean, next point, I think he hit an inside-in forehand winner on the line, and that made it 4-all. And then he got an error or something for 5-4. And then that was the point of the match at 5-4, surely.
Yeah. But, oh my goodness, like that point that we saw, was that at... Yeah, that was at 4-3, I believe.
The epic part?
Yeah.
5-4.
5-4 Djokovic serving, right.
Quick trivia for you. How fast do you think Djokovic's second serve was?
Like maybe 115 kilometers per hour. Not very fast.
105. 65 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
65 mile an hour.
Okay, I hadn't realized it was that slow. That
slowest I've ever seen him hit.
My goodness.
So he was tight, right? Like that is not something that Novak Djokovic does. And that speaks to how close this match was, I think. Like, he was nervous. And Tsitsipas, who, is not a good aggressive returner, hits a great return here. He runs around the ball, inside out forehand, deep into the corner, which Djokovic then resets with his backhand defense. But it was a slow serve. I didn't think that many people were fixating on that. It was a really slow serve.
Yeah, I felt like it was slow. I didn't realize it was 65. That is really something. Yeah, that's a good observation.
And so I think there's a lot to talk about in this rally. Midway through, Tsitsipas goes for broke on an inside-in forehand, hits the line, maybe even the outside half of the line, and Djokovic, as he does on the dead run, blocks it deep into the other corner. And Tsitsipas has to have a neutral forehand on his next shot. It's insane. Yeah,
and then, somehow Djokovic gets that ball back with his forehand and is able to sort of semi-lob it into hit a cross-court forehand. And then all of a sudden it's like Tsitsipas had total advantage in that rally until he does it, and then it's a neutral. And then he actually cracks a backhand, really, really hard cross-court.
Yeah.
And he has exactly the short ball that he wants on the forehand. But Djokovic is so good at anticipating, because as soon as he's in that
the king
backhand corner, you can see, if you pause the video, you can see his hips. He is anticipating that Tsitsipas is going to hit behind him, and he's not recovered all the way to the middle. So he's basically camped in that backhand corner. And Tsitsipas thinks, okay, I'll just go behind him, and then I'll come finish at the net. But Djokovic reads that play, and he's he's onto it in a flash. And then Tsitsipas has one of those volleys, which I guess, kind of makeable. Most likely he probably makes that if it's 1-all or 2-all in the set, but it's still
not a put away volley.
It's not a super easy one. It can be tough to execute that on such a big point. So
yeah, and I mean with this point, I think the reaction of a lot of people, especially people who dislike Djokovic, was like, oh, I can't believe Tsitsipas had an inside out forehand there. But how many times have you seen this happen with Djokovic, right?
Yeah.
He will just pick the right side. He knows what shot you're going to hit. At this point, I think it's time to stop blaming his opponents, because he's so good at this stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like an illustration of it, you look at the volley that Tsitsipas hits, even if it goes over, Djokovic had that covered as well. He was
he was sitting on it.
It was headed straight for him, and it's and I feel like we see this pretty often as well. Maybe someone misses a smash or a swing volley, but Djokovic is still waiting on that side of the court, and so it's should you have made it? Yeah, but I don't think that guaranteed that he was going to win the point.
No,
because
definitely
Djokovic
not.
is so good with picking the right side.
Yeah, probably could have been another 2-shot pass right after that, and Djokovic could have recovered. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and then match point, huge serve, huge forehand smash, and that's it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, he had to expend a lot of emotional and physical energy to win this match, for sure. And you could see it with his reaction at the end. And
yeah. And I think I said this to you on the call. It was to the extent that I thought Bruno would beat him in the final, even before it started.
Yeah, I thought, and I agreed with you as well. But of course, the turn of events that actually happened, I didn't expect Rune to win from a set down, and in the fashion that he did.
40.
Yeah, so many chances, I guess. I mean, if we could just set up the final, because, I mean, obviously, Rune has been doing really well, like even before the Paris Masters, post-US Open, indoor hard courts. The main thing that's improved for me is his serve. Obviously, his serve and serve plus one play. Obviously, we know he's a really well-rounded and complete player. There's not really a whole lot of weaknesses in his game. Obviously, like, he moves. Yeah, big, huge second serves. I mean, he really goes after that second serve. Like, he goes 110 average sometimes, and he makes them, and he backs himself, and then obviously he's playing with that freedom, and, you know, one of the best backhands I've seen. It's right up there with some of the best players right now. And his forehand is, his technique and the way he takes it so early, and he's looking to move forward and finish it, and then it's a little bit like Alcaraz. Just some of the things that he can do, it's super complete, and then he also has really good defense, so he can, you know, kind of just rely on, like, give a seating court position and going back like maybe 5 or 6 feet and just like blocking shots back with depth and then getting himself into rallies. I mean, he was winning long points against some of these top 10 players, and I think it really started with the match against Wawrinka, because obviously Wawrinka had 3 match points, and obviously they had a little altercation at the net, and Stan told him, like, you know, my one advice for you is like to grow up and stop being a baby, or something like that, something to the effect of.
Fair point. Yeah, I think it's like, stop behaving like a brat on the court. Like we know Bruno's track record, so. Yeah,
it's not been good. Obviously, he has he hasn't had the best reputation so far as a 19-year-old. I mean, last year with some of the homophobic slurs, some of the stuff he does on social media, but you know, we're all
just told by Casper Ruud.
Yeah,
well, not so he got the head.
Yeah, that was really a shocker for me, because obviously, I mean, who in the right mind messes with Ruud and like ends up like not being his friend. So I don't know. It was just, but you know, all this stuff can maybe change. He's 19. Obviously, he has a really good game. It will be interesting to see how his personality evolves. But so far, he doesn't have a great track record. But I guess, you know, that match from Stan aside, he then goes and beats Hurkacz in straight sets, handles Rublev with ease. Obviously, there's that match with Alcaraz. Pretty unfortunate for Alcaraz to retire. I mean, the domino tear, he's going to be out for 6 weeks. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be out for 6 weeks, but, you know, I think Alcaraz made the right decision, and hopefully the 6 weeks doesn't bleed into his off-season training, because that unfortunately is probably going to. But yeah, I mean, and then nonetheless, then he beats Felix, and then now you're thinking against Djokovic. I mean, he's got to win the first set. Djokovic is 30-0 in Masters 1000 finals when he does. And
I mean, Djokovic has a front runner. It's tough to do that. Like he never loses for a set.
Yeah, like literally never. And this first set was very routine. It was in some ways very similar to the Steph match. It was just one break, a couple of double faults actually by Rune to give the break in the first set,
right.
Like in a row, and you thought, okay, this is like, Rune's going to run out of gas. It's like rough 40 now at the start of the second. And then actually Djokovic uncharacteristically made a lot of errors that I look back on now and I'm like, dang, you don't see him miss a lot of these shots very often. I mean, there was one...
and that 30-40 point too with the smash.
Yeah, with the smash. And then there was like another easy return that he missed at 15-40. There was a backhand pass, like very routine. He normally makes that very easily. So like 3 chances for Djokovic where like he couldn't finish the points. Mm-hmm. And then he just doesn't play a really good game. Rune keeps holding. He takes that second set. And then we go to a third. And Djokovic actually goes up a break again. And this time he's up 3-1, 40-30. Rune double faults just like he did in the first set.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it might have even started at 3-1, 30 low. Like Rune just hits like a ridiculous like second serve return, like just blasts it right at Novak's feet. Djokovic is trying to serve and volley. Doesn't make it. And then at 40-30, I guess the really shocking point for me was at deuce, when Djokovic didn't put away the volley.
Yeah.
And he just kind of hit it, like, he had an open volley, and like he pretty much had the open court, and he just tried to go back behind Rune, but he hit it so short, and Rune just got up to it really quickly, and anticipated the next shot, and hit a good like backhand reflex volley at net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 40-30 as well, like that approach, right? Got past pretty easily.
Fairly simple. And then on breakpoint as well, he got past as well. I guess that time I give Rune more credit because he really covered that.
That was a better rally because Djokovic was dictating for 10-15 shots there, and Rune hung in. You know, I wonder if Djokovic was a little out of gas at that point with the.
I think he was, because he was stretching his quad. He was stretching his quad quite a bit. He was asking for some electrolytes. He was like just constantly stretching, right? I mean, like it was. I think he was just like, I mean, the match from the day before, and also like they had a lot of lengthy rallies that went like over 5 shots, and I was surprised how well Rune's backhand was holding up in some of these rallies. I mean, he was hitting some backhand down the line winners. Like I think he outnumbered Djokovic in backhand winners. It was like 16-9 or something at the end of the match.
Wow.
So like
that's a great stat. That's something you can like hang in your personal office or like put in your tennis bag or something.
Right, and there's not many players who can really do that and like drag out those exchanges and win. Like I think if you look at like 9+ shots, Rune had the edge, 15-11. You look at like 5-8,
okay.
Rune also had the edge. It was Djokovic who was actually winning a lot of like first, like serve plus 1 points, like under 4 shots.
Yeah, makes sense.
He was dominating that category, but it's not very often you see Djokovic go like whatever, like Rune going 3 for 3 on break points, Djokovic going 2 for 12, and Djokovic winning more points.
Because, Djokovic kind of gave away a service game at 5-all. And I was convinced he was breaking back in the last game because he was playing great tennis, but he forgot how to convert a break point. Like, Rune was clutched, but Djokovic made a couple of really weird errors. He had like 5 or 6 chances in that last game and didn't take any of them.
Yeah, 6 break points. And I would say 3 of them credit Rune, and 3 of them Djokovic really should have had it. Like, there was a backhand pass that he missed cross court. Normally makes that. Tried to go for the line on the backhand cross court approach. There was another point where he just like missed another routine shot.
Cross court forehand
into the net.
Which made no sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was another one I completely forgot, but he just couldn't finish. And then there were like 3 like really good, like there was one really good serve plus forehand, one really good unreturnable. So like Rune was hanging tough in this last game, but like, I mean, something tells me if this went to a tiebreak, I would pick Djokovic almost any day.
Me too. And yeah, it was, Rune was so clutch. I mean, like, down below 40, he started hitting, like, massive serves. Like, a lot of players got broken in that game, to be clear.
Right.
But it was weird, because Djokovic would play all these amazing points. He'd play, like, an amazing deuce point, and then he would just make an error on the break point. And it was like, and after that happens 2 or 3 times, like, even as it kept going to deuce, I just kind of knew that Rune was going to win, because Djokovic is usually so ruthless on those break points, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah, for sure. And also those 2 points he played 5-all, he was 30 love up in that game as well.
Oh,
and then
right.
30-all, he misses it was an easy forehand to get broken, like wide.
Yeah.
At 30-40, and there was another easy miss before that at 30-all. Just like 2 routine shots. Just like normally don't see him miss in those moments, but it happens. Yeah. Like, I feel like every year you have like 1 or 2 matches if you're as good as Novak. You probably have 1 or 2 matches like this where you're just not as clutch as you are in other situations.
Yeah, and end of the year, back-to-back 3-hour matches, like it happens. It's not. I'm not remotely worried about him. But his resume is so good that it was so weird.
Yeah, I know. And like it kind of reminded me of the Federer versus Team Indian Wells 2018. It was the same scoreline, and it was the same kind of thing where like Federer had like all these break chances, and like he only took 1 out of 11, and Team was like more opportune, and like just like Djokovic had these 2 misses at 5-all, 30-all. Federer did something with his, like he went for 2 drop shots in a row or something like that.
And the first one didn't get great again, but the second one was awful. I remember following the live score of that because I really wanted Federer to win after that Del Potro final in Indian Wells the previous year. And I remember he won the first set, break point up in the second. Like, Team was not the force then that he became like later that year and the next year. And then I just remember watching it spiraling out of control for like no apparent reason a lot of the time. So, that's a good comparison because that match was weird.
But I felt like both Federer and Djokovic understand like that can happen once in a while, and then they kind of took that on the chin, and like at least like Federer didn't seem so upset by that loss like he had against Del Potro. He kind of felt like okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think he won Miami after that and went on to have like a good first half of the year, but nonetheless, going back to this, like Rune winning this, I guess, what does this really mean? Because like it's the Paris Masters. It was a really big title. He beat 5 top 10 players. He's in the top 10 now himself. He's an alternate for Turin. He started the year ranked outside of the top 100. All of these things are like great achievements, but like, But then because it's Paris Masters, you have to ask the question, right? Like, I mean, I don't think this is like a Khachanov 2018 type situation, right? I feel like this is
bigger than that.
I feel like
I'll be open about the fact that like I'm not a huge fan of the guy. I mean the Twitter persona, some of the on-court behavior is just very tough. That said, I mean you beat Djokovic from a set down in a Masters final. I almost don't even care about the rest of it because that's so impressive. I mean, I was going to make this joke earlier. Like, I think with people saying Alcaraz is like the perfect combination of the big three, like by that standard, Rune is like the GOAT or something. No, but not really, obviously. I mean, it's probably too soon for him to start making projections of him winning majors. Like, I think physicality and best of five is still a question. I obviously would pick Djokovic to get him in Australia, or really anywhere for that matter at the majors. I think there are other players ahead of him too. But I mean, if he continues on this trajectory, like he's going to get to where he wants to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. But I will also say, like, it feels like Alcaraz has rivals now. Where, like, this is the first time since 2010. Exciting. I mean, this is the first time since 2007 that we have two teenagers in the top 10, like, since Djokovic and Murray. So that feels...
And so those two wound up being pretty good.
Right. And they were born, like, a week apart. And I think Rune kind of feels like everyone talks about Alcaraz, no one talks about me. I need to prove people wrong. And he kind of goes on the court with that kind of mentality. Which is like...
Yeah. It's great. And I think it's that same thing as Boyd Sinner as well, maybe just a little more quietly. Like, I'm pleasantly surprised at how fast young guys have been coming up to, like, challenge Alcaraz, because I think there was a decent part of this year when it seems like he was just going to, like, sweep everyone. There was no one close to him, and now, like, Sinner's beaten him a couple times. Like, Runa's coming up, Felix was on a crazy hot streak. And so now it feels like those four... Like, I mean, I still think Alcaraz is the best among them, but it feels much closer than it did. It feels like there are some potential rivalries there. I'm very excited. Yeah,
same. Feel the same about those four. But now, I mean, I guess looking ahead now, I guess the ATP Finals, I mean, is there anything else from the Paris Masters that stood out to you? Like just some big wins from other players? Oh, I guess Medvedev losing early to de Minaur.
Medvedev. I was going to bring that up as well. That made no sense to me because he had been playing well, and look, like de Minaur, like nice player, fast, like he's learned how to use the net pretty well. Medvedev should never lose to him ever with those compared skill sets. Like no way. So I'm sort of convinced there's a bit of an injury thing going on because Medvedev was hitting, even by his standards, some really bizarre looking forehands that had no pace. And so it was like, is something happening to his torso or something? I hope it's a one-time thing, because that was worrying.
Yeah, and I do think, like, it was definitely one of those losses that was really shocking, because he'd won the first set, he'd won the second set 6-2. He was up a break in the third. He double-faulted twice, just played a horrible service game to lose the match. And
yeah, like, that shouldn't happen. Like, in the first round, too, like, there's no pressure. Like,
yeah, and then sometimes I feel like with Medvedev, I mean, he has the serve, and he has amazing court coverage, and his backhand is one of the best. It's so reliable. But sometimes when he's tight, or when he's not, or when he's tired, or when something is bothering him, it can sometimes spiral out of control. Like his serve can spiral out of control, his forehand.
Yeah.
He can change his technique around mid-rally, and sometimes it just drops short. It doesn't really finish. He kind of needs like a really quick court sometimes to really get that instant offense, because he's not the best with his transition game. He's a little awkward at net. So there's all these things, and I feel like someone who can net rush and really hang with him in baseline rallies. Like, I'm actually interested. I'm interested to hear your take, because like everyone asks me, like, what is Medvedev's like best surface? Is it like indoor hard court, or is it like, I mean, is it like slow hard courts, or is it like fast? Right. I feel like it kind of depends on the matchup. Like if he plays a player like de Minaur who's really fast, and it's not as fast of a court, and you can like sort of hang with him in those baseline exchanges, it can be like that kind of an opponent can be a difficult matchup for him. But if it's like a really fast court and you have players like, think like a Hurkacz or like a Kyrgios, like someone who just like net rushes or like serve and volleys, like I guess Djokovic at the Paris Masters, like there's these different type of styles that I feel like people kind of understand now what they need to do against Medvedev to like pressure him, which like it makes it a little bit harder to put him as like a lock to win big titles sometimes.
It's a great point, and I think that a year or two ago, those weaknesses really weren't apparent. I mean, I think if you watch him at like the World Tour Finals 2 years ago, it really seemed like he was almost Djokovic 2.0 in terms of just not having any weaknesses on that surface. But yeah, you're right. Now, like, it's much clearer what you do. There is a roadmap on slow and fast hard courts. Still a great player. But yeah, the tactical master, I think, is really falling apart, I think. And I also just don't think he's gotten that much better in the last year since winning the US Open.
I was going to ask you, like, the US Open, really can he improve from that level? Because I feel like maybe this is the best we're going to see from him. Like, and which is like a really, really darn good level. Like, believe me, it's going to win him.
I feel like he can, right? Like, and I think we saw some of that at the Australian Open. Like, I almost felt like part of the match with Tsitsipas, like maybe that last set, and then the first 2.5 against Nadal, I almost felt like I was better. I mean, it really seems like he was borderline unbeatable when he was playing that way. It just fell apart very quickly, and we haven't seen it since. I think you make a great point about the serve. Like, it's a great shot, but it's temperamental. He loses it easily. I'd rather have, like, a less powerful serve that was more consistent. Like a Djokovic, or even, or like Tsitsipas, or even a Fritz, really. Yeah, so, I don't know. I'll be clear, I'm someone who's really, really big on Medvedev. Like, when peak Medvedev shows up, I'm ready to project that he's going to win. Like, not everything, but a lot of stuff. Like, I think peak Medvedev is outrageously good. Yeah. But not peak Medvedev is sort of more and more depressing. Yeah, I worry about him a little bit at this point.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. But we'll see. Like, he's proven, like, he's gotten me twice, because after he won Los Cabos, I was like, okay, yeah, this is his time now. Second half of the year, he loves these conditions. Like, he's probably gonna win a couple Masters. He's gonna do really well at the U.S. Open, and then Kyrgios gets him twice, and then there's like this.
The U.S. Open was really disappointing.
Yeah, and then there was like this Vienna. He wins that title. Like, great match against Shapovalov. Like, really good level in Astana, even though he had to retire. Like, some of the best stuff I've seen from him in a long time. And then I thought, okay, he was poised for a run here, and then he lost early. Yeah. And then it just kind of... I still put him as one of the contenders to win next week in Turin, just because he's pretty good at this event, and he's... Like, he has such a high base level, but... Yeah, a little bit worried.
Yeah, I was really on the same page as you after the Shapovalov match, and that tournament in general, because, like, that was sort of the quintessential Medvedev match, because he came out against a peaking opponent, lost 4 of the first 5 games, weathered the storm, lost that first set, and then, like, took on the peaking opponent, met him at that level, and then exceeded him in the 3rd set, right? And just completely turned the tables, blowout in the end. And I was like, this is great. This is what he does. It's amazing. That level would beat anyone. But yeah, I'm sorry, you cannot be the favorite for the World Tour Finals after the Paris he just had. So I'd like to be optimistic. I think I am kind of cautiously optimistic, but he should make it out of his group. But, like, I'm not going to say he wins the whole thing. Yeah,
for sure. And then, obviously, you had Nadal going out a little early, losing in the first round to Tommy Paul after winning the first set, going up a break in the second. I think he just a bit short on competition, to be honest. Like, he just hasn't really been in that competitive mindset frame, hasn't really looked himself since the start of Wimbledon. Like, some matches early on at Wimbledon were good. He sneaked out that awesome win against Fritz, but really, like, since then we haven't seen, like, Rafa in full force. And obviously these conditions make it harder. Like, his topspin doesn't really reward it. It sits up for players to attack, and Tommy Paul is a solid top 30 player. He's had, like, some really good results. But, like,
that was weird.
It was, for sure.
Something seems to happen physically. I didn't watch it. That's what people were saying. I mean, if I'm dubious on Medvedev, I'm worse than that on Nadal. I mean, if he is going to do anything at the World Tour Finals, his forehand needs to just be in ballistic mode. You rarely see that time of season. We haven't seen it probably since that Wimbledon match against Fritz, and that was when he was redlining because of an injury. So, yeah, I mean, he'll probably be rude. I don't know. My expectations for him are low at the World Tour Finals. Easier group. Not by as much as I think people are saying. But yeah, I don't expect much from him.
Yeah, that's fair. And he hasn't won like Paris Masters or ATP Finals. It's not really even when he goes in fresh, it's just more players can hurt him in these type of courts. And I feel like it's kind of like the Tiafoe and Paul are like very similar type of players. They kind of take the ball super early on their backhand. Mm-hmm. They can hang with Nadal in those cross-court patterns. They can they just come to the net and they have really good feel, and they can just sometimes take rallies like just out of your hand. If you're dropping the ball short, and it's like
And that's the key against Nadal. You want to take away his time, and it's easier to do that on the surface. Hard anywhere. Basically impossible on clay. But yeah, if you're going to catch him anywhere, I think this is where you want to play him.
Yeah, I did notice that Nadal was doing a few good things, like especially the first half of the match. Like he was stepping in, like standing closer to return second serves. Yeah, like being aggressive off of those. Like he had like a good purple patch where he just hit like straight return winners or. It looked like he had the match just set in a breakup, but yeah, it just didn't feel good when the split sets. You kind of knew the match had just completely changed, and it was a bit jarring to see like the last 3 games he wasn't really serving or going all out, but I get it. And I guess now we go to the World Tour Finals. I guess if we look at the groups, you mentioned Nadal. Nadal has Félix, Ruud, and Fritz in his group, and the other group you have Djokovic, Medvedev, Tsitsipas. And then Rublev. So, we look at this group. I guess it's my first thoughts were like, okay, this is like we have some good potential, especially in the second group for some amazing matches like Djokovic, Medvedev, and Tsitsipas. I feel like if we get 3 setters between all 3, that would be like amazing.
Yeah, I'm especially excited for that Djokovic Medvedev rematch after their abbreviated match in Astana, because that was great, and it could have been monumental. So I hope that both go into that one motivated, and we don't get a rematch of their 2021. But yeah, I'm curious to get your take on the groups, because people are saying Red Group is so much stronger, but I sort of look at that and I say, like, okay, like Rublev, I'm not going to say he doesn't win matches. He's not getting out of that group. It's between the other 3.
I feel the same.
I think Tsitsipas, he's won this tournament before, but I don't think he's getting out there. Like, I think you have 2 pretty clear favorites, even with Tsitsipas being in better form than Medvedev. So, like, maybe Tsitsipas gets in over Medvedev, but I kind of doubt it. And Rublev, I think, is probably out of the running entirely. So, like, it is the stronger group, but I feel like in the green group, like, Nadal, even out of form, is dangerous, I think. Auger-Aliassime has been great. Ruud, maybe not the best environment for him, but I think he's capable of making a run. And I feel like Fritz could beat anyone in that group as well, which I don't feel about Rublev. And so, like, if I had to pick one, like, Red is stronger, but I don't think it's by that much.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, one is definitely stronger, but not by a whole lot. Like, it could have been more imbalanced than it was. Like you could have, like you could have not had. You could have even had like Nadal in the other group, and like you could easily have like 3-1 in terms of like the 4 best players who I thought were in really good form: Djokovic, Félix, Medvedev, and Tsitsipas after Paris. And then after that, you probably go Rafa,
and then you have an unbalanced group.
You probably go Rafa, and I feel like Ruud. This is one of those times again where we're all counting him out, and we've been doing that all year. And then the guy is just like a master sometimes at proving people wrong in terms of making these deep runs. A few things like fall into his place, but I just don't. But like even if he doesn't have a great run, like at this point, I don't. Like, it doesn't really matter much because like he's made 2 slam finals. Like it's not really his thing this time of the year. He made the semis last year, and I don't feel like he has as much to maybe prove like going into next year. He probably just needs to have a good solid season at the major next year and like continue building. I mean, it would be like a really good statement if he like beat like one of Nadal, or I guess like just hope for a better match against Rafa because like after the French Open final they've not played any other time, so this might be the best place to catch Nadal if you're Ruud.
Great opportunity to kind of reorient the dynamic of that rivalry, quote unquote. But yeah, this is sort of what you said about Ruud. One of the issues I have with this tournament, like I just feel like I feel like the people who have the most to gain are the ones who didn't have good years, right? Like, Nadal is not going to win this tournament, but that's fine because he won 2 majors, you know? Like, Djokovic, like, hasn't won this in many years. Like, he won Wimbledon this year, not the end of the world if he doesn't win it.
I wonder who it's the most important for. Like, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Medvedev?
That's sort of what I'm thinking. Like,
maybe Medvedev?
Right.
Like, Djokovic, like, yeah, but he's won it 5 times, and he hasn't won this since 2015.
Yeah, I think like, Rublev needs momentum. I think to an extent Tsitsipas does too. But this is sort of what I'm getting at. That like I think the people who have the most to gain have the worst chance of winning, with some exceptions. And so because of that, I feel like like either Djokovic wins and it's like okay, or like a spoiler wins and it's like okay, but like that would never happen in a major. And so it's just like, what are we playing for here? And the answer is like ranking points and a crap ton of money. But from
crap ton of money, and I guess
I don't know how much this says about anything.
Yeah, no, you make a good point about like what does it mean like for next year and like long term in terms of like the landscape. Like that's we've definitely seen that, especially with runs at this time of the year. I just happen to like the fact that it's like round robin and it's kind of just throws a different mix because like you can lose and you can still like play it again and you still have a chance. Like you can literally go 1-2 and still make the semis. You can go 2-1 and not make the semis. Like there's just so many permutations and combinations sometimes with the math. Especially like I'm, I could easily imagine like we have like 3 straight like 3 setters like between like let's say Djokovic just has an off day and he doesn't beat Medvedev, but like Medvedev beats Djokovic, but then like somehow against Tsitsipas he doesn't come through or something like that. But like or like Tsitsipas like needs to win in straight sets against Rublev, but oh no, Rublev wins the set, and it's like and it's like you could like do you remember like like there've been like many times before like in round robins where it's just like you would have totally thought these 2 players would go through, but then just something weird happens and you get these it kind of makes things interesting. Like I'm really curious because like Nadal Felix, like how does that look on an indoor hard court? Like how does Felix serve +1 dominance like go with Rafael Nadal on the surface? It's like
probably pretty well.
I would say like if you took him to 5 sets at Roland Garros, like
but yeah, I mean you're right. Like I feel like for Rublev, I don't think he will see it this way because I think his mindset is not right.
It's honestly the worst group he could have landed in. Like to have Djokovic and Medvedev.
It's like he's got a free shot at a bunch of the best players in the world, right? So he should just go out there, swing for the fences, and see what happens. And not think that he should beat everyone, which he shouldn't and he won't. But I mean, I think at the least it's a great opportunity just to mix it up against top players. Like I think Fritz as well. Like he has a tendency to not close the deal in big matches. Here's
in the majors,
a bunch of big players in succession. So I think there are some things to get excited for. Do you want to make predictions?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I'm not confident about any of these, obviously, but like, I have a feeling that Nadal beats Ruud. It's just a really bad matchup for Ruud.
That's fair.
And Felix, like I'm high on Felix, but then I also wouldn't be shocked if he just throws in like one stinker match, Like let's say he's up 2-love in the group and he just plays Ruud again and he's just like, you remember like in Canada they played, it was like a terrible performance by Felix and he lost like 1-2.
He got like what? 3 games.
Yeah, and so like I don't know if there's something in that. And I didn't watch that match very closely, but like it could just happen. Like it's a dead rubber.
Yeah, or like honestly, like Nadal could just beat him like 4-4 or something.
Right, like
that wouldn't be stunning to anyone. I think so.
Right, so like I don't know if he finishes 1 or 2, but I'll say Felix gets out of his group tentatively. I mean,
me too.
Him and Fritz played once this year at the ATP Cup. Fritz won it in 3 sets, but like. I don't know, it's like kind of a toss-up. So I'll go with Felix to get out of the group. I'll hesitantly pick Nadal just because like his fighting spirit is
interesting.
And like because he's proven me wrong, like at the Australian Open and a few moments this year. And because like he lost early in Paris, he probably got to the World Tour Finals early. He's been playing a lot of sets against top players, I'm assuming. And usually like, against Fritz, like, he wasn't 100% at Wimbledon, but like he found a way through, and maybe if it maybe he doesn't start out strong, but then maybe he squeaks against 1 or Felix or Fritz like in a third set tie break or in a really close match.
Yeah, it could be a 2019 situation.
Yeah, like a 2019 situation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
fighting spirit. This is new. So, but yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, I don't hate that prediction. I think Felix probably gets out as number one.
Yeah, Nadal too, probably.
I'm going to go Ruud, just to be honest. I think Ruud will beat Fritz.
Interesting. Yeah, they've never played each other. That's like one match we haven't seen.
I think, I'm going to go ahead and say Ruud beats Nadal. I think.
Ooh, I like it.
I think this is lower stakes than a Roland Garros final. Better conditions for Ruud. He's going to be motivated, and Nadal is out of form. So I can see Ruud going like 2-1, or even 3, or enough things fall in his favor. So I'll say Ruud and Felix.
All right, I'll go a little different. I'll say Felix and Nadal.
Okay, you always beat me in predictions, so but I feel like
I don't know. Sometimes you got me, but yeah,
maybe like 1 out of 10 times. What do you think about the red group?
I definitely don't think Rublev will make it. I think his best chance of winning is probably against Tsitsipas, like on an indoor court this quick with his serve +1. Yeah, but like, jeez, like, see, like, I don't know if Djokovic will go 3-0 in this group. Like, I don't know, because like, like, he can just like not start out very well against Medvedev, and that matchup for him sometimes in best of 3, it's been like 50-50. Like,
it's going to be hell either way.
Yeah.
If he wins, it's going to take work, which is not what you want.
I'm confident that he beats Tsitsipas. They play again on Monday, but I wouldn't be surprised if that goes 3 as well. And then I wouldn't be surprised if like Tsitsipas Medvedev goes 3. You know what I mean? And like, we could see a lot of 3-setters in this group. Like,
right. I think even Medvedev Rublev. If Medvedev doesn't show up, I think Rublev has a chance there.
Yeah.
I think he'll need to peak, obviously, but it's not out of the question. I
don't
think I just got to go with
maybe Medvedev gets out as 1 and Djokovic 2, but like, I don't feel like, I don't know who's going to be 1 or 2. Like, these are just hunches.
Yeah, I'll go Djokovic 1, Medvedev 2. I feel like I don't want to bet on Djokovic to win this tournament just because it hasn't happened for him since 2015, but I don't trust anyone else as much, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Wait, so I have Felix 1 and Nadal 2, and then the other group I have Medvedev 1. Yeah, I have Medvedev 1, Djokovic 2. Okay. So
I've got Felix 1, Ruud 2, and then Djokovic 1, Medvedev 2. So...
Nice. So what are your
2, right?
Yeah? So like, what are your semifinals?
Okay, so it would be Felix and Medvedev. Oh, that'd be good. Wait, no, it'd be right. Felix and Medvedev. Man, that's tough. Okay, I feel like if Medvedev gets out of his group,
and then you have Nadal Djokovic, right? For your other semi.
No, Ruud Djokovic.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're not picking Rafa to get out of the group.
Djokovic
Okay.
is obviously going to win that.
Yeah.
Nadal Djokovic would be great. I'm pissed they're not in the same group. But yeah, so I feel like if Medvedev plays well enough to get out of his group, I think he'll beat Felix.
Okay.
It's going to be tough, but I think he'll do it. And then, obviously, Djokovic over Ruud. And then, does Djokovic beat Medvedev twice in the same tournament? I don't know. This is tough.
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Medvedev's lost against Demon, or I have to hold against him, so I'll say Djokovic beats Medvedev again.
Okay, and then that's your prediction, for the final. Okay, interesting. I think I have the same final as you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but I have. So the thing is that I have it reversing because I have Medvedev beating Djokovic in the round robin.
Right.
And so then I have Nadal and Medvedev playing each other this time because Nadal is 2 and Medvedev is 1. And then Djokovic Felix. I feel like Djokovic Felix could be really good.
Yeah, that could go either way. I feel like any match with Felix and it could go either way to be honest.
And you know what? Like, Djokovic hasn't done very well in these semis recently in these World Tour finals. Like, think last year and the year before that against Team. Particularly. But and Felix's serve +1. I don't know. Like, it's like, Nadal Medvedev. If it's anything like their 2020 match, that's probably going to be very exciting.
I love Nadal Medvedev. I really wish Nadal were in the red group instead of Rublev or Tsitsipas. Probably Rublev.
Yeah, for me, like I wanted Tsitsipas and Nadal to swap, so that we could have Nadal and Djokovic in the same group. That was one of the reasons for my. Well, like it's these matches could really go either way. This is like super 50-50.
Yeah. So you've got Medvedev
playing Nadal in the semis and Djokovic playing Felix.
Okay. And this, it's frustrating because, like, so I think Felix might be the best pick to win here.
Right.
Even with that winning streak, I don't think he's done enough against top players for me to call him a favorite.
Like, so besides Alcaraz that one time and, like, Djokovic.
Yeah. Like he's been very good. But, like, given the year he's had, he's been inconsistent enough that I'm not picking him to win. I'm not picking Nadal, Ruud, Fritz, Tsitsipas, or Rublev to win. And so that leaves Medvedev and Djokovic, and Medvedev just lost in the first round of Paris to Turin. So that leaves Djokovic. By default, I have to pick.
Yeah, like the Nadal-Medvedev one is interesting. Like, if they play each other...
Maybe Nadal even gets again if that happens. Like...
Okay, you know what? I'll say Nadal beats Medvedev. So he gets to the final. And I'll say Djokovic gets by Felix. And I'll say Djokovic beats Nadal in the final.
After all of that, it's going to be like a repeat of the 2013 final with like Djokovic winning in straights, facing like one break point or whatever. Oh man. I mean, Djokovic and Nadal in the final would feel right for a variety of reasons. I don't think it'll happen, but I like your prediction.
Yeah, it feels kind of, but like, certain things like have to fall into place, but it is, I feel like it is possible just because Nadal and Medvedev recently, like, Nadal knows what to do in that matchup recently, like just with the Australian Open final in Acapulco.
Is gone, I think, between Acapulco and Australia. So he'll need to win. But we've both got Djokovic winning, Medvedev and Felix as other contenders.
And I have a feeling that Djokovic Felix for me semis, that could be the match of the tournament. I'm saying that. Could be money match. Yeah, I'm saying that could be like an epic.
Yeah.
So that's it for me for predictions. But
that was really fun. We got to do another one of these during or after the World Tour Finals. Like, it'd be fun to check in before the semis and see how these predictions aged.
Right. But if this year's anything to go by, I probably jinxed all of your favorite players if you're listening. So
Right. Sorry if you made it this far. But I'm holding you to that. Check in before the semis, and we will laugh at each other's predictions.
Yeah, let's do it. I love being wrong in tennis too. That's one of my favorite things, actually.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I still remember confidently picking Medvedev to beat Djokovic in the Australian Open final last year. And he won 9 games. Oh, so fun. Anyway.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, Owen. Yeah. This was great. All right. Yeah. Thanks for doing the podcast. And be sure to follow us on all social medias. Follow Owen at Tennis Nation. Follow Popcorn Tennis as well. They're doing really good work. Follow us at Tennis and Bagels. DM us if you want us to do a show or a podcast on any topic, or if you have any other questions. Share this episode. Tell the whole world about it. All that jazz. Yeah. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye.